Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about the Only Fools and Horses Christmas specials. There's 18 of them, which is quite a lot, isn't it?
There is a lot, yeah.
So at number 18, what did you go for?
I went for Miami Twice.
Okay, yeah. Reasons?
Um, I, don't, I just don't think it's as funny as the other ones. I don't know why. It's just my personal preference on it.
That's all right. Yeah, it's hard to be critical, isn't it? But yeah,
Yeah, they're
as we
also
did,
good, but with that one, it's just not my favourite for some reason.
yeah, it might be because it's a totally different location, isn't it? They're in America. You only see
Yeah,
Boise and Marlene, don't you? You don't see any of the other characters really.
no. What did you put for your 18?
I went for If They Could See Us Now.
Oh,
Yeah,
how
I
come?
wasn't that keen on that one. I just didn't like it when they got rich, to be honest. I didn't, and also John Sullivan, he actually said that he wanted to get them away from that world as quickly as possible because they weren't funny. That's what he said.
I didn't see it being rich, I don't think.
No. What's at number 18 for you?
For me, I think, Chris, it's Rodney Come Home, 1990 Christmas special. So it's when Rodney's round with Cassandra and she moves back in with Del. And I think it's possibly Uncle Albert's funniest scene when he has to act shocked that Rodney's taking Tanya to the pictures to watch Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And if you remember, he goes, as Rodney walks in, but he's getting it wrong each time, isn't he? And you see Del smirking, don't you, in that?
I think number 17's got to be Strangers on the Shore for me.
For 17, what did you go for?
17, I've gone for the very first Christmas one, which is Christmas Crackers. It's a typical Christmas scene, really. They're all at the flat, a bit fed up. One of the funny moments for me is when Grandad, he does the cooking, and it's the first sort of example of his culinary skills are sadly lacking, where he's left the giblets in the turkey, hasn't he, with the background.
Yeah.
So they're eating the Christmas dinner and they're like, oh my God, what's this? And you've got the electric knife, haven't you? He's not got to put a plug on it, has he? on the knife. And then in the afternoon, they're all falling asleep, aren't they, watching a circus?
Yeah, and then Rodney's bored, isn't he?
He's bored.
Boring.
I think Del says, well, we can't really go out because, you know, poor old Grandad's left on his own. But then Grandad goes out with his coat and says, oh, I'm leaving. I'm going out. I'm not staying in with you two boring too. So they end up at the Monte Carlo Club in the end, don't they?
Yeah, and that's funny as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and at the very end, I think Del and Rodney go over to these two girls and Del says something like, me and my brother just wondering if you're going soon. And they go, oh yeah, we'll get a coat. And he goes, oh good, we'll have your seats then. They thought the girls thought they'd pulled and they just wanted the seats. Yeah, so good episode, but again, stiff opposition, isn't it? Some of the episodes. So
yeah, I've gone for Royal Flush rather.
Okay.
At number 17. Just because it's very different. Again, they're in a rich world, aren't they? I remember they go shooting. There's quite a funny line in that. I can't remember exactly. Do you remember the line in that?
I remember at the when Rodney's getting his suit and the guy.
Actually, I remember now.
Yeah.
It was when he had the earmuffs on, and he was on about music or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, I can't listen to music when I'm shooting. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fairly humorous, and I think the funniest part of that episode is the opera scene. That's really funny.
With Junie is in that, isn't she? The strip that Rodney thinks it's a stripogram, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And they're eating loads of food.
Didn't we talk about that before though? Wasn't that?
Yeah, that came up with Una, didn't it? Who played Debbie? We mentioned that, didn't we? That she's in that episode, Junie.
Mentioned.
And, mentioned, yeah, and Debbie's mentioned. That's right.
But I think what a lot of fans don't like about it is the way that Del has a bet, doesn't he, that Rodney, yeah, it doesn't work out between him and his interest, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the controversial bits at when they're having the meal at the
At
Duke
the
of
end,
Marlborough's house, isn't it?
yeah.
And he throws him under the bus a little bit, doesn't he, by showing him up?
Hmm.
But again, I think there's some great lines. I think that when they go to the shop for Rodney's suit, and they walk in, and the shopkeeper says, "What is Sir's pleasure?" And Dell goes, "Well, birds and curry, but I've not come to chit chat."
So at number 16, what did you go for?
Number 16 is Fatal Extraction,
Okay.
because I don't like it when Del Boy and Raquel fall out. And like how it's funny but it's sad at the same time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
It's so hard to pick what's not your favourite and what is your favourite.
Oh yeah, of course it is. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because they do. I don't know how many times do they fall out in the show. I'm trying to think. Like properly fall out. Not as many as Rodney and Cassandra, is it?
No, them two.
All the time.
Yeah, every episode. No,
But-
but it's like, I think it's because you can see like Del Boy hurting and he's too proud to say that he's hurting.
Yeah.
That's where he goes to the dentist, isn't it? And then he flirts with a receptionist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like her in it.
Oh no, she's like
No.
a serial killer.
Yeah. Proper creepy.
And I think it's sort of based on that film, Fatal Attraction. Have you seen that film?
No.
Oh, well, that's about, well, basically, I think it's Michael Douglas. He has an affair with Glenn Close. And in the end, she tries to kill him because she won't be with him at the end of it and she can't accept it. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think it's loosely based on that because there's a bunny boiler comment in Only Fools and Horses in it. And yeah, and that's what she actually does in the film. She boils a bunny just before she tries to kill him.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I
No.
learned something new.
I went for Miami Twice at number 16. That was mine. I do
Okay.
like it. I find it funny because I like a lot of gangster films. But again, it's very different, isn't it? You know, there's no
Yes.
pub. There's only Boise and Marlene, so yeah.
Did you know that he did all these stunts, David Jason?
Oh, did he? Well, on the jet ski?
Yeah, and do you know when he jumped into the lake with the crocodile?
Mhm.
Into the lake? Yeah, he actually did that. The crocodile was actually in the water.
Oh, right.
It was in the book that I read about him.
Ah, that's
And
cool.
when they sat on that log with a crocodile behind him, that was actually a proper crocodile. They had someone there dangling the meat on the
Wow.
other side. Yeah, and
Brave
them
man.
being scared was actually them being scared.
What did you pick at number 16?
16 I had, let's have a look, is Diamonds Are for Heather. So that was series 2, wasn't it? The Christmas special. I think it's got one of the most famous songs. Well, not famous songs, but when I hear the song, I always think of the episode. You know, the Zoom, Fat Larry's band.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whenever I hear that song, I think of that episode. But apparently they were only I saw it on Top of the Pops too. It was a one-hit wonder, that song.
Yeah, you're
Well,
right.
really. Yeah, biggest hit they ever had. So yeah, if you remember, it's when he meets Heather, and that's quite one of my favourite scenes, when he meets Heather in the pub, and he's at the bar saying what he does. He's an importer, exporter of quality merchandise. And then he finishes by saying he's selling some very cheap washing powder. Sort of sums Del up, doesn't it? He's full of front
Yeah.
and bull, but then he goes back into his normal mode, then, doesn't he? Washing powder, and then I like it at the end as well when he gets dumped, and you've got a nice Christmassy scene outside. If you remember, you've got the choir singing Silent Night, and he whispers into the the guy who's the conductor, I suppose you'd call it, whispers into his ear, and the next minute they're singing Old Shep, aren't they? Because it's Del's favourite song.
Oh yeah, sing Old Shep. I went for Diamonds Are for Heather at number 15. This is where Del Boy finally falls in love with Heather, and she's got a son, hasn't she?
Yeah, called Darren.
Darren, yeah. But to be honest, I see these a lot on the TV, and I've got the DVDs as well. But I don't remember too much about it. All I remember is that he falls in love with her, and he's sort of like a dad to Darren.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, she's like, "Oh, you were more like a brother to me." That's all I remember. Seriously.
It's very upsetting though, I think, like, because he was going to propose to her in the Indian house, curry house. And then she goes back to her ex or something. Yeah, I don't like that part.
No, there's lots of bittersweet moments in Only Fools and Horses, isn't there?
Yeah. It pulls on your heartstrings, but also makes you laugh at the same time.
That's what's great about it, really. I mean, it's very close to real life.
Right.
14.
14 now. Interestingly, the first of the 3 trilogy, the last 3, Strangers on the Shore, which is the very last episode, actually, isn't it, of the show? I thought it was okay. It was good.
Second to last. So what did you go for number 14?
I went for Rodney Come Home.
Rodney Comes Home. Oh, okay.
Because again, I think with them falling out all the time, it just, I don't know, like, trying to think. I don't think there's a reason why I put it for number 14. I think the funniest part in that for me is Uncle Albert going, "Oh," and then like seeing Dave and Jason trying not to laugh.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah. A girl.
A girl. Yeah.
That has to be the funniest scene in that episode. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just more of Rodney's attitude that annoys me more than the thing like I don't like. Because he tries to act like Del Boy, but it doesn't go to plan.
Yeah, and he's not like Del Boy, is he?
No, it's complete opposite. But Uncle Albert made that the funniest, I think.
Yeah. I went for The Frog's Legacy at number 14. I found it a bit confusing, if I'm honest, with the whole storyline of Freddie Robdell, and then later on, of course, we find out that he is Rodney's dad, and there's bits in it where he says he didn't know him, and then later on he did know him. It's kind of a plot hole, but
yeah.
And it's also one that I don't think is repeated a lot on the TV. And when I see it, it's kind of nice to see it though, because I don't remember it all, which is rare for me, you know.
I do like that one. That is a good one. But again, it is very confusing because it's backwards and forwards, isn't it? Sort of. Because you meet Del Boy's mum. Mum's best mate in it. Meanie.
Right.
Yeah, I can't remember her best friend's name.
And she says the story all about the gold. Is it gold of Freddie the Frog Robdell, or was it, what was it? It was treasure or something, wasn't it?
It was gold because it was in the sea, wasn't it?
So you can tell I haven't seen this one that much, because all I remember of this one is that they find out where it is, and it's in the middle of the sea, isn't it? Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
But maybe it's because I haven't seen that one that much.
Could be.
Could be, yeah. Well, on to 13. What did you choose?
13. Well, I've gone for the final episode now, Sleepless in Peckham. It's an emotional episode, isn't it? The funniest line for me is when Del says they think Boyce. He says to Boise, "I think you've murdered Marlene and buried her in the garden." And Boise takes quite he's quite offended by that, because he says, "How dare you say I've murdered my wife? I've just had that garden done." So it turns it round, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We later discover she's had a boob job, don't we, Marlene?
Bought a firm in.
Bought a firm in, and I think Boise says it's $4,000 a boob. So Trigger says, "Well, how much does that cost you then?"
About $8,000.
Yeah. But I think it's quite a touching episode, isn't it? When Rodney and Cassandra have a baby daughter and name it Joan, don't they, as well?
Yeah, and at the cemetery at the end as well.
That's right. And they both discover that Rodney is, linking back to Freddy the Frog again. Rodney is in fact Freddy the Frog's son, isn't he?
Yeah. And that's another thing about that episode, though, and you'll probably talk about it later, is sort of the inconsistencies. Like, I think you said once before that in that episode, Del says that he didn't know him. And then later in Sleepless in Peckham, he says he did know him. But
yeah, like you say, he had no clue in Frog's Legacy who Frederick Robdell was, but he knew him very well, didn't he? Come Sleepless in Peckham, yeah. And then they get some money back at the end, don't they? Albert's left quite a bit of money again in the will, hasn't he? So John Sullivan's left it again where they aren't, not as millionaires, but they're set up again, aren't they? With a few quid.
They can get by, yeah. They can buy the flat, probably.
Yeah.
And I think there's, that's the episode with, they're trying to write a movie script, aren't they? Do you remember, on Rodney's laptop?
That's right. They're going to call it Harry Trotter or something, weren't they? Or Del was. Yeah.
Originally, yeah. That's quite humorous, yeah.
Del's drinking Bacardi Breezes, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, and it gets more and more out of control, doesn't it? Because then I think Jordan and Liz Hurley are going to be in it. And
that's right. Yeah, it did remind me actually of the episode Video Nasty, I think, isn't it? The rhino loose in the city. It did remind me of that episode a bit. That similar, isn't it? Because Del's come up with an idea again, I think, hasn't he, of a story or a plot, like he did in the Video Nasty episode.
Yeah. No, but again, this one's a lot higher for me. But there you go. It's great though, isn't it? Because it's just everybody's got different opinions about this. So yeah, I think you're always going to. Yeah,
it's what you look for. You alluded to it before. You've not seen the Frog's Legacy that much. I probably haven't seen that episode quite as much, or the last three quite as much as the earlier ones, I must admit.
On to my 13 is Christmas Crackers. I really like this one. And thinking of the moments, I think, maybe it should be a bit higher now. But I think, like you said, maybe it is the time of it. The earlier episodes in the series weren't as long, were they? But I do love it. I mean, I love the whole thing with Grandad messing up the turkey with the giblets and everything. And when they go to the nightclub, as we said earlier. But yeah, I think it's just because of the time, really. The Christmas specials, they're the big ones, I think.
Yeah, it was a proper Christmas scene, wasn't it? It was a typical Christmas scene that you'd get in any household. The dinners. Sometimes the dinner's ruined, isn't it? And then you do have that lull in the afternoon, don't you, where you're watching telly a bit full, a bit fed up, and it did sort of portray that a bit, didn't it, as well? So it was a good episode. But like I say, it's the first time we saw Grandad ruining the cooking, really, wasn't it? Wasn't the last time, but it's the first time.
Yeah, anthracite potatoes. Yeah.
I'll just strain the gravy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine what that tasted like. Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't the best, but I think Rodney always says to him, doesn't he? Why'd you let him cook the dinner? And he says it's Grandad's only role in the flat or something, isn't it? But it wasn't the best meal, was it?
No, but no, it's another great episode. But yeah, I think just because of like you said, really. I mean, how long were the specials? They were about 50 minutes, were they, or longer?
It could be an hour to an hour and a half. Yeah, I was just thinking about the episode as well. There was where they had a Christmas card of Brenda and Terry, didn't they? Do you remember?
Yeah, I get one of them every year.
Do you?
From people we don't know. Yeah, from the last. I mean, they can't be very good friends, but
No, you can't remember him.
no.
Yeah. And then there was something about from the drug. Merry Christmas from the drug
Rehab
addiction
centre.
rehab
Yeah,
centre.
addiction centre.
Yeah, and I think Grandis says, "Well, we've got enough drug addicts. We don't need them recruiting them as well or something," doesn't he?
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah. I should have had mine higher now. Thinking about it, it was better than what I remember now. Yeah, there's some good little moments in it.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? You do it, and then you're like, "Oh, actually,
Yeah.
I did
It's
mine
difficult.
3 times."
You could have 100 people, Chris, couldn't you? We'd all have a different list, wouldn't we?
Yeah. My number 12 is Rodney Comes Home. I'm actually quite fond of these bittersweet episodes, if I'm honest. They really get to me, if I'm honest. I love the laughs, but I just remember this episode at the end. It's on a real low, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Del tells Cassandra that, but all best intentions, he tells her that Rodney's going to take out another girl, to the cinema. Yeah. And you can see where he's coming from, but totally the wrong thing to do. And then they're just walking out, and it's very sad at the end. Really, you wonder what's going to happen. That's what's great, and it's very somber, and you think, oh, I wonder what's going to happen from there. Obviously, they get back together, but yeah, no, I kind of like the bittersweet episodes.
I've had the first one of the last 3 episodes, so I've put this is my favourite of the 3. If They Could See Us Now. Obviously, we discover Albert's died, like we mentioned. You've got the funeral there. Del's on Gold Rush, and Rodney's a phone a friend, isn't he? Like we said. Yeah, good episode. And I do think the Russell Crowe and she's a policewoman, because Rodney's got a bit of a fetish for liking policewomen, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And Del forgets something in the car, doesn't he? Does he go back to make a phone call?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think Del goes back to make a phone call.
Sorry, yeah, he yeah, while they're dressed up, and Rodney says they're going off to a fancy dress party, doesn't he? And then Del's like, "Oh, you better go then."
But at first he thinks Chris, they're being raided, because all he sees is Cassandra as a policewoman, doesn't he?
Oh, okay.
And he's in the kitchen, isn't he? We're being raided, and then out walks Rodney in his Russell Crowe, and then they hug each other, don't they? I think. And Rodney's closed his eyes. As soon as he opens his eyes, there's Del Boy, isn't he, as well? Yeah, it's good moment, that. And then Del's annoyed with him when he's been the Gold Rush, isn't he? And you just hear him laughing, Cassandra, Raquel, and Del Boy, because he's saying Russell Crowe, isn't he, to him to Raquel in the kitchen.
To be like Gladiator, yeah. And I think he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you liked him." Yeah.
Yeah, she's, "Oh yeah, something," didn't she?
But yeah, thinking about it, that does remind me that's funny, because Dale's like, "Oh, you better get off then, to this fancy dress party." But so I wondered what they did after that. I don't think they had a key or anything, but yeah.
No, and he says, "Put a coat on, Rodney. You'll rust or something," didn't he?
Yeah.
As well.
So that's your number 12, yeah?
That's my number 12. Yeah. What about you?
Rodney Comes Home. I like Rodney Comes Home. I like a lot of bittersweet episodes, if I'm honest. I like the ending of that one, and of course you've got the Uncle Albert gag. That's so good, isn't it? With a girl. Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favourite scenes. Actually, it is funny every time you watch it. That noise he makes.
That's quite funny at the very end, isn't it? When the neighbour says something like, "People are trying to sleep." He says, "Well, go back to bed then."
Yeah.
And then they're outside the flat rowing, Del and Rodney, aren't they? And Rodney goes, "You've upset some of my neighbours." And the neighbour shouts again, doesn't she? "Can you be quiet?" And Rodney shouts, "Shut up!" So he's as bad as Del, isn't he, then?
But I kind of like those sad endings. That sounds a bit down in the dumps, doesn't it? But I like a lot of those sad moments, because they sort of feel real. So when they walk away and you hear the sad music, and it's a bit like, well, what's going to happen next? It's that kind of thing.
Of course, if you remember, Chris, they've set it up nicely for Series 7 comes straight on the back of that episode, I'm old enough to remember it first time round. I remember watching that Christmas Day, and then Series 7 was out in the January. So if you remember Series 7, he's at the house, isn't he?
Yeah.
Rodney, as that series starts.
They fall out a lot, don't they? Cassandra and
Oh
Rodney,
yeah,
I mean,
I think John Sullivan's trying to get them back in the flat together again, isn't he? Because it works better, doesn't it? I suppose.
I think it's Uncle Albert or it's Del. He says that they're like two characters off of Dallas, you know, because they break up all the time. I can't remember what characters, but
yeah, and I think Del goes, I suppose I'm a bit like Bobby, but Bobby Ewing is much younger than JR. You know, if you were comparing them, JR would be Del and Bobby would be Rodney. But Del says, oh, I suppose I'm a bit like Bobby. You know, Del always thinks he's the younger brother or acts like the younger brother, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's the Jack the lad, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's got all the he acts like he is the younger brother, doesn't he? He's got all the energy and jumping about, and Rodney's the more laid back, serious one. Yeah, he is.
So at number 11, what did you go for?
Number 11 is Mother Nature's Son.
Mother Nature's Son, Peckham Spring.
Yeah.
That's a great episode, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a very open 24 hours, but not at night.
Yeah. That's one of my favourite trigger lines.
Number 11. So I've got Royal Flush. You had that quite low, Chris, didn't you? That one.
17 for me.
Yeah, 17. Yeah. Like I say, bit controversial. I did like it because at the beginning you've got Victoria and Rodney, they meet in the market, don't they? And she says, did you hear that noisy little man selling that tatty cutlery? And I think Rodney says, yeah, that's my brother. It's quite fascinating how they get on so well, really, isn't it? I think Rodney had a chance with her, really, didn't he? She liked him.
I think she's kind of intrigued about what it's like to be working class. I think it's that. It's a bit like that song by Pulp, Common People, the lyrics to that song. You know.
Yeah, she won't have come across in her circle of life a Rodney type of character, would she? Everybody would be the same. I think she said, I'm used to gymkhanas and parties and things like that, I think she said, didn't she? That was quite funny in the cafe when she says, Fatty Thumb, isn't it? She says, oh, my mum died skiing. And Rodney says, I know how you feel. And she says, I don't think so, Rodney. He says, yeah, I do. And she goes, where was your mother skiing? And Rodney goes, I don't think my mum did a lot of skiing, what by all accounts, you know.
Yeah, different world.
Yeah. And obviously to get the tickets to is it Carmen the Opera they'd go?
I think so, yeah.
Off Limpy Lionel, the tickets out.
That's my favourite bit in it, the opera. I mean, it's so funny, isn't it?
That must have cost a bit again, mustn't it, to have that? You know, I
wonder what opera house that was. There must have been one in London. Royal Opera House, maybe, or we should look into that, really. But
I think it is. I think it is the Royal Opera House, isn't it? I think it is. Yeah. I think they do mention it, the Royal Opera House, in the episode. I think I'm not certain though. You're more averse at that neck of the woods, aren't you, than me, really?
I'll look it up.
Yeah. So what about your 11 then?
Modern Man, or Modern Men, rather. Yeah, Modern Men is my number 11. I do really like this one. It's all about Del's book, isn't it? This book that he's got, telling how to be a new man, a modern man, 21st century man. And it's just very funny the way he's reading it. And then he'll be reading about something he should be doing at that moment. But then he'll be like, stop, I'm reading my book, you know. It's that kind of thing. And he gives Raquel like this backhanded compliment about being a Bond girl, doesn't he?
That's right.
What is it he says? He says like, oh, you could be one of those Bond girls. And then...
Yeah, look at her. She's a dog or something, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she's a dog. You could be one of those Bond girls.
And then he says, I bought her a dress. So in other words, I've done my bit for charity, didn't he say?
Oh yeah, and I'm just
Yeah.
remembering that. What was it? The LP he bought her for Christmas. I'd like a
A Bruce
Number.
Oldfield number.
yeah. You got it.
In fact, Chris, how about that?
Brilliant. Tubular Bells.
Tubular Bells. Bought her a Mike Oldfield number instead. Yeah.
Funny.
That was
I
on
take it that was a designer at the time, a dress designer.
Yeah, Bruce Oldfield. I don't know much about it, but yeah, it would have been like you say, a dress designer. Yeah.
Hmm.
Get me a Bruce Oldfield number. So yeah, I end up getting her a Mike Oldfield album. I think that referencing Fatal Extraction. I think that episode's from actually.
And also the beginning of the episode. That's very different. I'm thinking, is this where he has the dream? Rodney has the dream at the beginning of the episode, and it's in the future.
That's in Heroes and Villains. That one.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of. That's I didn't talk about that earlier. Talk about that later because that's very different. You know.
Yeah, I don't think we've come to that episode yet. Actually, have we? That I don't think either of us have mentioned that one yet. Yeah, I like it. I must admit that Modern Men. In fact, you've nicely linked on. I've got it as number 10 myself. So he's having the vasectomy in the episode as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he says to in the cafe, I think it's in Sid's cafe. Del says to Rodney, "I'm having a vasectomy." So Rodney chokes on his tea, and Rodney says, "Why are you having that done down the hospital?" And Del says, "Well, of course, yeah. I'm not going to let Trigger do it with his Black and Decker, am I?" And obviously, you've got the tragedy there, Chris. Again, of they lose the baby in that episode as well, don't they? Rodney and Cassandra.
Yeah, that's one of the saddest scenes for sure.
And Del Boy whacks at the very end of the episode. Del Boy whacks a rowdy patient, doesn't he? Who's been waiting for hours, and he berates the staff, if you like, and he ends up whacking him one. And then he says, "Feeling better, sir?" And then he turns to somebody waiting, doesn't he? He says, "I bet you'd wish you'd gone private now, don't you?" That's quite. Again, he's flipped it again from tragedy to humour again, hasn't he? So you could switch it on and off a little bit.
Yeah. The bit that always makes me laugh, although it's a bit weird, but it's like when Del Boy's talking about taking his sperm to the bank or something, and Rodney's like, "Oh no, you can't do that. You know, she might get jealous." And then Del's like, "Oh, I've got millions of them," and it got to the point where it might come out my nose.
Yeah, I'll be frightened to sneeze. Yeah, but what Rodney didn't want, Chris, was loads of little Damiens running around.
Oh yeah,
he's frightened of Damien, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. What was your number 10?
I put Sleepless in Peckham.
Okay. What do you like about that episode?
I'm trying to think which episode it is now.
It's the last one. It's where Rodney finds out that his dad was Freddy the Frog, and Marlene has a boob job.
Oh,
good things in that one.
Is that where they have the baby, Rodney and
yes.
Cassandra? Yeah. That is one of my favourites, but it's funny and very emotional because at the end they're at the graveyard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And Rodney says, "Am I like him?" And then Del Boy's like, "No." And then,
yeah, he lists all these things that Rodney isn't, doesn't he?
Yeah. And then don't you list the things that Rodney is, or am I getting that wrong?
No, he lists all the things that Freddy the Frog was.
Yeah.
And then he says you're nothing like him. And that always gets me. Again, another emotional scene.
Yeah, it makes me cry. A lot of them do.
Yeah, no, it's very true though. I mean, that's what's so brilliant about it, as we said earlier, because it makes you laugh, it makes you cry.
Number 9, which is a lot lower on your list, Miami Twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's like, wow. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, go on.
I know what you meant by the episode. I probably contradict myself here, really. Was it one of the most enjoyable episodes? No, but I think I've put it up there because, I mean, it was different, wasn't it? It was totally different. cost a lot to make. It was just really, in a weird way, it shouldn't be judged with everything else, should it? Because it was totally different than the other 18 episodes, really. Just had no bear. You weren't in Peckham, you weren't in the flat. But I think a really good plot line to it, wasn't it? Really cleverly written, I thought.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think though. There was an episode before it, wasn't there, that followed it on, wasn't there?
The Miami Twice was over 2 nights. It was again, being Anorak here. Christmas Eve, they showed the first episode, which was called The American Dream, and that was the Damien's christening, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I met with the Romanian Riesling.
Romanian Riesling, that's right. But it has to be red wine, doesn't it? But obviously, it was white wine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he cons him, really, doesn't he, into buying 2 tickets to America, knowing full well Cassandra can't go on the trip, can she?
Yeah, and then I think that episode ends when they're on the flight, and then obviously it's Miami Twice after that. But I suppose they join them together.
Yeah. But originally, Chris, it was two episodes. Christmas Eve.
That's how I remember watching it. Although it would have been after, but I remember watching it in 2 parts.
Yeah, it was Christmas Eve first part, and the second part was Christmas Day. I like the first episode. So that's in England. Was good when they've got the Damien intercom, haven't they? So Rodney's going on. He's cursing, isn't he? Stupid bank, because he's told Cassandra she can't go. He's lying down, and Damien's sitting up on his cot, and he just hears. I think Rodney's saying, "Oh, go on, go back to sleep, and Del can hear him on the intercom in the lounge. So he just says, "Who are you talking to, Rodney?" He thinks, Jesus, it's Damien speaking, doesn't he? And he runs out of the bedroom, doesn't he? He's sharing with Damien. So that was quite funny.
Yeah, you have that kind of like religious music, don't you? Or it's like, or kind of horror music as well. I'm trying to think what I could sing it, but
it was The Omen, wasn't it? It's The Omen, I think. It's based on, isn't it? He was called Damien in The Omen, wasn't he?
Oh, okay.
With
I didn't
3
know
sixes
that,
on the back of his head.
Yeah, I knew that was an evil name, but yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, because in the episode where Raquel gives birth, Rodney says, any I don't know if you remember this, but Rodney goes to Del, any numbers on the back of his head? The 3 sixes. And Del goes, well, I think this is numbers. I think it's a bloody raffle or what? Or something. Yeah.
But no, I thought it was I like it. I do like Miami Twice. As you say, it's very different. And I like my mafia films, and when they try and whack him, and yeah, it's very good.
Do you know what? I wish I'd asked Rico this at the time when we had a podcast. Do you think they all went to America? Obviously, Del, Rodney, Boise, and Marlene went. Do you think the rest of them went? Because you ever watched that second episode? The pub doesn't look the same. Do you think it looks like it might be done on film, but it looks like I'm wondering if they all went over to America.
Oh, I don't know.
Do
but would he wouldn't necessarily know though, because he would be just in his scenes, wouldn't he, without them? So
yeah, he may have had some inside knowledge. I mean, he must have met. I think, in fact, I've seen him because they were in the Everglades, Boise and Marlene, weren't they? To be fair, anyway, I think there's a photo with them and Rico.
But yeah, it would be interesting to find out if they were there or not. Yeah,
because I always think that when I watch the pub scenes and the flat scenes, because if you remember, Del and Rodney turn up at the flat at the very end, don't they?
Yeah.
And Albert goes, "Welcome home, boys," and there's white Riesling everywhere, and the boxes of the stuff. But I mean, would it have been financially viable to do it? It wouldn't have made any sense, really. I don't suppose to have them all going out there, would it?
I thought the bit was funny when they see him on the TV at home, and Raquel's like, "Public enemy number 1. He only left whenever it was." Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? The interesting thing, I think I'm right in saying this, that's the last time that Cassandra's mum and dad are in the show, weirdly. It's quite strange, that, isn't it? I don't think they ever appear again.
Yeah, that is odd.
Yeah,
I thought they were good characters.
Yeah, they worked quite well, really, didn't they? Alan and his what was it? He jellied eels, wasn't it? He used to be sick on and stuff.
And he'd always drink too much, and she'd give him an earful. Yeah.
You're going to get drunk on jelly deals or something. What you say? Since you've met Del, you've become a born again hooligan.
Hooligan, yeah. At number 8?
Number 8 is Modern Men. I love everything about it. I don't think there's anything I don't like. The whole script was written so well. 'Cause that's when she had the miscarriage, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that is such a sad scene.
That is very sad scene. I cry, but I laugh at the same time because Del Boy's like, "You need to be strong, no crying," and then walks through the door, and then Raquel says, "I'm sorry," not Raquel, Cassandra, and then Del Boy cries. And then he punches that guy in the waiting room.
Oh, that's a brilliant scene.
That is a funny scene.
It's kind of relevant to today as well. You see a lot of people who, they're abusive hospital staff, aren't they? And
Yeah,
you'd love to see that happen, really. But no, that scene. I know we were talking about the graveyard scene in Sleepless in Peckham, but that's another level, isn't it? That is so sad.
It's the acting's like spot on when they're in the lift and Rodney's telling Del Boy how he feels. I just stop at that and I cry. So emotional. But the only that series I was watching, they only practiced it a couple of times because John Sullivan wanted their emotions to be raw and they didn't want it to be well practiced.
My number 8 is Strangers on the Shore. I do really like this episode. It's not number 1 of the last 3, but I think it's the funniest for me anyway. The whole Gary situation, the illegal immigrant, Del feeds him a chicken trotter, and it's just so funny, isn't it? And earlier on when they go to Normandy and everybody looks like Albert because he's populated Normandy. Yeah, everybody's got beards, haven't they? I think it's a very funny episode, and I think it kind of, this sounds a bit dramatic, but it kind of saves the last 3 episodes because it's really funny. The whole scenario with Gary when he gets into the truck, Denzel, of course, is bringing back beers and all sorts for Del in his truck, and then he it's just such a great scenario. I thought that was brilliant.
It is funny at the cash and carry, isn't it? Obviously, Rodney doesn't like any dodgy deals, does he? But Del set it up that, look, Denzel, we'll meet you and Trigger at the cash and carry, and we'll fill your lorry up with ale. So Denzel bumps into Rodney and Del, so Denzel acts it out, doesn't he? Del, Rodney, what are you doing here? So they bumped into each other, and then
Trigger.
Yeah. He does the same, doesn't he? Del, Rodney. And Del's like, what are you doing here, Trick? You told me meet here at 2 o'clock or whatever he says, yeah.
And Rodney's finally wised up.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. But it's quite clever at the flat where you've got Boyce's been chucked out of his flat. It's the Onions episode, actually, isn't it, as well? Hasn't he put puree in Boyce's brill cream?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Marlene's chucked. They're having problems with the fire, gas effect fires, aren't they, as well? So Boyce's been chucked out. He didn't want to go his mother-in-law, so he kips the night when Gary's there, doesn't he? So it looks like Boyce is holding Gary hostage, doesn't it?
I like the bit with the gun, with the lighter, because that's of its era as well. You got one?
Yeah, of course they have, Chris. Yeah, there you go. Mine doesn't fire though, unfortunately.
Ah, that's great though.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Gary thinks he's being held hostage, doesn't he? And it's just such a great scenario, great scene. Of course, we've spoken to Nabil about it before, and he obviously really enjoyed it. Like you said, he had the ultimate experience, really, didn't he, in the flat?
I think I even said he wore Del's pajamas. How many people can say that? I think Boyce comments, doesn't he? Where did he get dressed? In a power cut? And Del says, they're my pajamas. He says, yeah. Who else can make flaming red and lime green work? And Del's like, well,
and somebody else says it's like a set of traffic lights.
That's right, set of traffic lights, yeah. And then Boyce is making a sandwich, isn't he? So he's pointing the knife at Gary, isn't he? So Gary, you know, again, you can interpret that as being
Yeah.
hostage, can't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of moments in that. And down to it now, number 7.
Number 7, yeah. This one, I was a bit hesitant with this one. That it maybe should have been higher because I really do like it. Thicker Than Water, which is it's series 3 Christmas special. It's the only time that the dad appears in the episode, Reg Trotter. And I think there's some great lines in it. I think one of the funniest for me is when Rodney Reg Trotter's trying to make out that Del and Rodney aren't proper brothers, isn't he? So they've had the results back, that the different blood groups, and Rodney says something like, "I can't wait to fill out my next application form. Mother's name Joan Mavis Trotter, father's name Herr Albert, and the Tijuana Brass." And that's just hilarious. And then it flips on its head because Reg Trotter's trying to make out that Del's not his son, isn't he?
Yeah.
Not Rodney, which they thought. So Del's sort of put in the cold a little bit by Reg, isn't he? And then they're playing cards at the Nag's Head, and he deals the cards out, doesn't he, Reg? And he goes, Dad, Rodney, Kimasabi, after the Lone Ranger.
Hi ho, Silver.
Hi ho, Silver. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, he's just like Del Boy, isn't he? Really, he smokes the cigars and
Jack the Lad. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's wearing the flat cap, isn't he? As well, I know he's wearing Del's sheepskin and flat cap, isn't he?
I think even Rodney wants to say that, doesn't he? And then he says, "Oh, a bit like some of the lads down the pub," doesn't he?
Yeah, and that was funny. Del come back into the flat, and he says, well, Rodney had a bit of a long face. "What's up with you?" Rodney says, "Well, I'm showing him me GCSE certificates, and my dad says he was proud of me, and then he wrote a bet on the back of one of them or something, didn't
he?" Yeah.
Yeah,
he was cunning, wasn't he? His dad.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and that was a good line as well. Something like he said, "You've not been in the," Del says, "you've not been in this flat since 1964. We see more of Halley's Comet than we do him," or something, didn't he? So that was good as well, you know. And maybe he'd had legs. He maybe could have had him in more episodes. Maybe I thought he fit in quite well, really. I know he didn't, didn't he? But I thought he was quite a good.
Maybe he could have come back one more time. I think maybe.
Yeah. As a one-off cameo role, you do remember him, don't you? Quite well, yeah.
Yeah, I like the bit where Del Boy says, "And the chief gynecologist, Lambretta."
Lambretta, that's it. Yeah.
Number 6 is Sleepless in Peckham. Funnily enough, for me. Yeah, I like the emotional pull of this one. I like the end scene at the graveyard where Del lists all the things that Rodney isn't, that Freddy the Frog was, and that always gets me, honestly. I've watched it quite a lot recently, actually. They were on Netflix, weren't they? All the Fools and Horses, and
they were. They took them off, haven't they? Now, unfortunately.
But I think the last 3 are good, and I think the thing is, now you look back on them after all this time, you realise how good they are. At the time, you might have been like, "Well, it's not quite as good as the old ones," and I think now, when you look back at them, they are really good. Of course, but the characters are older, aren't they? So it's different. But
yeah, you can't have them going to the Monte Carlo club, can you? You know, when the Del's 60. Yeah, it does. He's got to change it a little bit, hasn't he? I like the photograph of the Jolly Boys outing. Do you?
Yeah, I love that bit. And that's what song was that in the background? It's the Stereophonics or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not important, but anyway,
I'm trying to think. It is Stereophonics, so you're right. Yeah.
And he takes it back to the flat. He's had it blown up, hasn't he, for everybody to see at the pub. And then Del sees it, and he's like, "Hello, Bruchette," or something like that. And yeah, he realizes. But that whole scene where Del talks to Raquel, and then Rodney talks to Cassandra, and they're both like, "I couldn't tell him," and break his heart. You know, that always that's always very sad, isn't it? It's yeah. And then of course you've got the final scene. Yeah, I just think it's a very good episode, and there's funny bits in it as well. The bit you mentioned about burying Marlene in the garden, and she's had a boob job as well. She's brought a firm in, and yeah, I think that's very funny with the landlord at the Nag's Head. who
Yeah,
was,
Sid's the landlord,
Yeah.
isn't he? Because
Yeah.
obviously Mike sadly passed away in real life. He's embezzled the brewery or something, hasn't he? So he's in jail, isn't he, in the story?
get your foster tits out of here.
Yeah, yeah. But then after about 2 minutes, they come back because Boise goes, "I've just thought I've paid for this, dude."
So
Yeah.
many gags.
And then it's what's the there's a few tribute acts, isn't there?
Yeah. Ziggy Sawdust.
Ziggy Sawdust, and then not Robson and Jerome. It's a take on them as
Lordy
well, isn't it?
Geordie.
That's it. Yeah.
Lordy Geordie. Yeah.
Lordy Geordie. Yeah. Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, I think that's funny because they're like, yeah, I've got a tribute act to Robson and Jerome, and Rodney's like, why? Okay, at number 5, then I think are we?
5. So we're getting into the real the big hitters now. So yeah, you've mentioned it. I think it's your number 6 to Hull and back. Like I say, the first one to be shown on Christmas Day. It's the first time we meet Roy Slater as well, isn't it? I think he's in 3. Yeah, he's in 3 different episodes. So he's obviously set up with Van Cleef, hasn't he, in Amsterdam? Get some a courier, and someone's put up the money, which is Boise and Abdul, to smuggle the diamonds in. So they're getting paid at both ends, as Slater said it, doesn't he? Yeah, and I think a lot of fans say about at the end bit, you know, when he chucks the 15 grand at out of the flat. A lot of fans say, "Oh my god!" But he obviously thinks he says it's counterfeit. What do you think I am? Some sort of Wally? You know, and that's where it ends, isn't it? That episode, but again, different to many other episodes, isn't it? I mean, I've never been to Amsterdam, but I'd like to go to Amsterdam just to see the.
Yeah. My number 5 was Thicker Than Water. All that. Yeah, I do love this episode. We spoke about Dell's crafty dad. I mean, the way he changes the test results of the blood test. I mean, AB, terrible, really, wasn't it? But I just love it, and it seems very Christmassy.
Yeah,
you know, the lines in it. You know, you've got some 3 wise men, isn't it? Some at Christmas bearing gifts, but we get a Wally with a disease. Things like that. It's very Christmassy, and again, it's a bittersweet one. And there's sad scenes in it when Dell says, I think he says, when you closed that door in 1973 or something. What 64? Got that completely wrong, but in 1964, you closed it for good. Yeah, and things like that.
Yeah, because Rodney wants to get to know him. I think Rodney says later, doesn't he? He took me to the zoo, wasn't it, or something? And Del says, I don't want to ruin it, but I saw him looking at the Action Men the other day. They were quite big at the time. You know, the Action. Do you ever have one of them? The eyes move at the back, don't they? The Action Men.
Yeah, I think he said something about Scalextrics as well.
Scalextrics as well, is it? Yeah. And Del says, I think we'll have to have tests then, see if we've got this disease. And Grandad says, well, I have to have tests, and it always makes me laugh. Del goes, you're most probably the carrier, doesn't he, or something?
Yeah. And I like the bit where Dell's like, it's negative.
Yeah.
Rodney's like, that's all clear as well, you plonker.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Why don't they say all clear? Oh, who cares, you know?
Yeah. Your number 4?
Number 4. So we're getting down them now. Not been mentioned, I don't think, so far. Heroes and Villains for me, the first of the 96 episodes. I think it's one of the most iconic episodes for me when Del and Rodney are dressed as Batman and Robin, of course, aren't they? So many memorable moments. I mean, when they burst into the funeral wake as Batman and Robin, and before that, they knock on the door and Boise answers, doesn't he? And I think Del says, "Oh, look at Boise, me and you are dressed as Batman and Robin, and look, Boise's dressed as the Penguin." And as they walk off, Boise goes, "No, Del boy, not the Penguin, more like the Joker." And that's when they burst in, isn't it, into the wake.
It's one of the best, and I've actually muddled them up. Number 5 was Heroes and Villains for me. Number 4 was Thicker Than Water. I don't know. I didn't talk about Heroes and Villains, did I?
No, you didn't. No, go on. What do you think of? Well, it's easier now. We both talk about at the same time, isn't it now?
Yeah, let's both talk about it. Go on,
Yeah.
continue. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
correcting
No,
myself.
so you've got that. I think that's good as well. That when they're at the wake, you know, Rodney says to Trigger, "We didn't know the funeral. It was a funeral. We thought the fancy dress was on. So we've come in our outfits." And Trigger goes, "Yeah, I'm dressed in my outfit as well." Like, what do you mean? Well, I was going to be the chauffeur. I feel a bit stupid now. You know, and he looks like he should be at the funeral, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah.
I think Trigger then goes on to say, "I don't think you'd have won the fancy dress anyway. You're all right, Rodney." But, well, he didn't say Rodney, obviously. He said, "You're all right," but Del looks nothing like Tonto. Yeah. I'm on 3. I've had Dates as my number 3.
Oh, okay. That's in my top 2.
Yeah, it's obviously the dating agency episode. Del joins the dating site after Trigger joins it, doesn't he? And that's when we first see the blue suit, isn't it, of Trigger's?
Iconic.
Iconic suit. And Del says, doesn't he? Is it Comic Relief Day again or something, doesn't he? And then Trigger goes, "No, I've got a date." And then Rodney says, "You want to be careful. Del nearly choked on one of them last year." You know, he says, No, Dave, no, a date with a woman." And they all go, "Are you sure?" Like that, don't they? But I find it funny when Del's at the dating agency and he's asking for his requirements. He says he wants a bird, doesn't he? A local bird. He doesn't want to do too much of that driving lark. And she must be refined. "I don't want you lumbering with some bow wow who don't know the difference between a leaf round milch and a canitizer." I think that's quite sharp, isn't it? And he's called himself Derek Duval, hasn't he? Then,
Duval, yeah.
yeah. But again, it's good. They've got Rodney's taken out Neris, who Mickey Pearce and Jevon have said they like macho men and stuff. So he's gone a bit James Dean look, hasn't he? Really. I think Del Boy says, doesn't he, to him? But they meant before the crash, the James Dean look. And it's
that's my number 2.
Go on, go on. What's your memories of that episode?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you were saying about the whole thing, what I love, I find it funny, but it's also terrible when you watch it, but it's really funny. Kind of reminds me of The Inbetweeners in a strange way. It's sort of on the verge of it's funny, but it's terrible. It's like you were saying with Mickey Pearce, Jevon, and the other guy, the way they stitch him up. You know, it's real because she's nervous, isn't she? She's the opposite of what he goes for, and he pretends to be the tough guy, doesn't he? This is my jungle and all that. And it's just hilarious. The end scene where you see her, she's crying, isn't she? She's just like, and swivel on that. It's brilliant, isn't it?
And when he turns up at a house, she goes, I think she before she gets in the van, she goes, "Is this a 3-wheel van?" He's so cool. He goes, "What was the last time I counted?" And then as he's going, "We'll just cruise now." He throws his fag out, but he's still got the window shut, hasn't he, as well? So it's obviously caught fire, hasn't it, the van?
But even she's quite funny because Rodney asks her, "Where do you want to go? Do you want to go see a film?" She's like, "No, I don't fancy that. You want to go for a drink?" She doesn't want to do anything, does she? And Rodney's like,
and then she goes, "I don't mind anywhere," doesn't she? Yeah, he says about 4 things. She says, no. And then, "Where do you want to go then?" "I don't mind anywhere." Yeah.
We just cruise.
Yeah, but like you say, that bit is hilarious, isn't it? When that car pulls out on him and swivel on that, camel breath. But then they start obviously following him then, don't they? They turn round.
And of course, the funniest bit is Raquel, the stripper. That is one of my favourite. That's probably what makes it second for me. That whole scene, everything about it. Of course, Del doesn't know that Raquel's the stripper, and it's her Uncle Albert's birthday, and everything about that scene, especially the bit where Boise says, "Is this the actress you've been telling us all about?" You know, and
then you hear the iconic laugh, Chris, don't you? That.
Yeah. But it's also sad at the end because what does Del say? He says, "Like everything else in my life, it's too late." It's that kind of thing.
Too bloody late, yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, when they've had the row on the car park, haven't they? I think Rodney says, "No need to say that." I think he said, "I'll pay."
What's your number 2?
Christmas crackers. Because my mum can't cook, put it that way. My mum's not the best cook, and it just reminds me of Christmas at home when my parents were together. eating the Christmas dinner, and it wasn't that nice. It's just, it reminds me of that, pretending it's nice, but it's not.
This will take me a while to edit, but
Yeah, I was just going to say about my number one being Jolly Boys Outing.
go on. Oh, sorry,
yes,
did we get to your
that's
number one?
okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
was
so your number one is?
Yeah, Jolly Boys Outing. Like I said earlier, the soundtrack is brilliant. You've got the Everyone Wants to Rule the World, Help, 2468 Motorway. Everybody's talking, and of course Chaz and Dave down to Margate at the end. And I just thought it had everything. It had all the casting. The plot line was brilliant. From Stephen in the flat saying, let me run this one past you, try and get your heads around this, to the Trivial Pursuit game at the flat, where he answers, what's a female swan called? And Del Boy says a bick. And then you've got the Harry, the coach driver, becomes unwell, doesn't he? We think at the time he's drunk. I think as he's getting up the stairs on the coach, Trigger goes to Mike, what do you think's wrong with him? And Mike goes, well, snow blindness would be my best bet. Trigger goes, oh, really? I thought he was pissed. That's quite a funny line. And then, of course, like you said before, the coach explodes. So there's 27 of them then.
Even with Denzel not being well, that's great writing because he drives the coach after that, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he drove a bus with Sid, I think. Sid said, oh, he drove a bus with me years ago or something. So, yeah, that's all interlinks, doesn't it, that? So then the 27 of them are trying to get a guest house then in Margate. I think that's where it really, I think it sort of escalates. I think it gets better then. It's still it's brilliant before that, but I think it really gets good then. Do you find that last half an hour is really, really funny in that?
Yeah. It builds up momentum and then it gets better and better, really.
Yeah, it gets better and better. You're right. Yeah. I
haven't even mentioned where Rodney hits Yuppie Stephen, have we? I mean, I love that scene. It's brilliant because Del makes him believe that that's what you have to do, and of course, it's a totally different situation, isn't it?
He's copied Del, of course, hasn't he? From
Great Raimondo.
Yeah, like you said before, he meets Raquel in the Mardi Gras. They get back to the guest house late, and then Del throws a rock, doesn't he, through the window, smashes it, so they run off and then go to Raquel's flat, and that's when Del hits the Great Raimondo, and then throws, like you say, the suitcase through the window that we didn't know at the time, but it's hit Boycie and Mike. So that's quite funny in the flat, isn't it? When you've got Albert with a plaster on his head, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And Del says to Raquel on the phone, hey, dear, what happened to Albert? And she must have gone, no. And he goes, well, a huge rock came flying through the window and hit him a glancing blow on the head. So it's a mystery. And Albert says, bloody yobos did it. And then Albert says, tell her what happened. Tell Raquel what happened to Boycie and Mike. She says, what was that? Well, a suitcase. It's Mike, but luckily Boycie's head broke its fall. And then Del's like, oh, terrible old world. And then, like you say, it links on with then Steve. He's whacked Stephen, hasn't he? And he's been chucked out, Rodney, of his flat, hasn't he?
And it also, I remember, like, how a lot of the lads have got a nice B&B, haven't they? I think it's, isn't it, Mickey Pearce and Jevon, haven't they got like a nice hotel and they're eating a roast dinner? No, it's Mickey Pearce and it's Denzel.
You're right. No, it is Jevon as well. It's the three of them.
Oh, it's all three of them. And then Del says about his made-up disease, doesn't he, or whatever?
Yeah, Mrs. Cresswell, they've got there, haven't they? Because they've got vacancies, but she hasn't turned the sign round, has she? But as they're going, because Mrs. Cresswell said, I've got no room, they hear them three laugh, don't they, having their dinner?
Yeah.
And I think Mickey Pearce says, oh, look who it is, it's the Coach Busters. Because Albert's stroking that nice white fluffy Persian cat, isn't he, on the way in? And on the way out, he's like, good year.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Bond cat, isn't it? It's like, like the old Bond films, yeah.
Yeah, and they've gone from that lovely B&B, and then, like you say, they go to the Villa Bella, which is far from being nice, isn't it? What did Rodney say? It's more like the Munsters Weekend Place or something like that. But that episode finishes brilliantly with the Margate song again, doesn't it? and
Rounded off
yeah,
so
just-
well.
but that'd be that to me, yeah, that I believe that was when Fools and Horses at his peak for me. Series 6, followed by Jolly Boys Out, and that's when it was at its absolute best.
And with Chaz and Dave, apparently they were going to sing the theme tune. Apparently, originally,
I believe so. Yes, yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
John Sullivan did a great job, but I bet they would have done it brilliantly as well. I mean,
they'd have probably jazzed it up a little bit, wouldn't they, as well? Maybe.
yeah, maybe it would have been a bit overproduced. You don't know, do
Yeah,
you?
been really upbeat, wouldn't it? You can imagine it being quite upbeat, can't you? Did he ever show you Catherine Jenkins doing it on Jonathan Ross, the Stick a Pony song?
Catherine Jenkins, really?
She'd sung it like opera with Dizzy Rascal. I thought I'd sent you that. I've got it on a video. I'll have to send you that.
No, yeah, you will have to.
Yeah, she made quite a good. Well, she's a good singer. She made a good job of it, but different version. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. It's been good. I'll get it all edited and then we'll get it uploaded.
Yeah, well, sounds good. Well, Merry Christmas to you, Chris. And
yeah, Merry Christmas. Have a good one. And yeah, in the new year we'll do some more. Yeah.
Yeah, look forward to it. Yeah, I've enjoyed it this year. It's been great, hasn't it? We've met some cracking guests.
Yeah, it's been really good. I've really enjoyed it. All right then, Chris.
Cheers, mate. Take care now.